Welcome to ATDLE, Voices of Dual Language Education, the podcast where we share our dual language experiences. I am one of your hosts, Angelica Sandoval, and my co-host, Gisel Barrett.
Hola, hola. Feliz viernes, Angelica. Each episode will talk with inspiring guests, share stories, dive deep into classroom ideas that will spark curiosity, inspire change, and bring laughter. Whether you're here to learn, be entertained, get inspired, you're in the right place. So sit back, relax, and let's get started.
Yay. So today's topic, dual language journeys, honoring our roots, expanding our children's future. And we would like to welcome our special guest, author and national leadership keynote speaker, our dual language parent, Ovi Vásquez. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you both, Angelica and Gisel. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here, not only to share story, but hopefully lots of insights as we go all along this journey together.
Yay.
We're so excited to have you today, and we would like to share our audience who you are. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your family and your story?
Yes, briefly, I was born and raised in the sugarcane fields of Guatemala with no electricity. The village had electricity. My grandma had a tiny ranch away from it, and that's how come we did not have electricity until I was 8 years old. Now I'm a father of three. Two of them go to school in a fully dual bilingual immersion, which happily is part of the ATDLE impact directly. And so I was so happy when you invited me to keynote your conference in Riverside, California, because this was an authentic message from someone who directly gets benefit from it. And of course, my third baby, who is now 2-year-old, we get to also join that program. And in my career as a professional speaker, I always do share the story of how I overcame lots of challenges, came to the US as a teenager, learned English in 2 years in high school, graduated high school in 3 years. I earned a bachelor's degree in 2 years. And so then that's when I became aware that my brain could learn things quicker than most people. And I took full advantage of that by taking initiative. I self-published 6 books, helped 9 other people publish their books, and opened up a whole career for me in technology. I worked for Apple, Tesla, Salesforce, Uber, and now I'm a professional speaker as a keynote for conferences on a national level. And here we are now.
Wow. So impressive.
It's incredible.
Oh, you're so young. And
Don't forget good looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Oh my gosh. And I remember your keynote speech when in Riverside, and I was so very much moved by your story. And a lot of us teachers think the same, right? Like we hear a lot of the stories from our kiddos, from our classrooms. We're classroom teachers, Gisel and I. And so your story was very much an eye-opener for a lot of the educators at the conference. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now, you shared stories about growing up and working in the fields in Guatemala. Now that you have your own children, like how you stated in the dual language programs, how does it feel as a parent having those kids? Like, how do you make those connections of what they're learning and what you went through? And do you tell them your stories? And as a parent, what is it that you look at for?
Without a doubt, our kids now have lots of advantages, and sometimes they may overlook how important the things that they are having in front of them can be. And so sharing those stories of our upbringing can be an extremely great tool so that they can understand how lucky they are now And there are lots of challenges that they may face now. But for me, as I'm driving down the road, picked up my two kids from school with my third little baby, because I always bring my third one to pick the other two from school. My baby my baby girl, who's now 8 years old, asked me in Espanol. She said, "¿Y cómo era tu papá? Like, how was your dad?" Like, asking me about what the personality, I guess, about my dad.
Yeah.
And so I responded to her in Spanish, and I said, "Bueno, mija, yo nunca conocí a mi papá. I've never met my dad." And they, even my 6-year-old, my boy, he stopped for a second, and they both stood in silence in the car, wondering like what happened. And so then my baby girl asked me, "Well, how come you never met your dad?" Right, in Espanol, and my kids and I only communicate in Spanish. And so, well, I went on to explain, well, a lot of people in this world don't have the opportunity to have their parents with them. And I say, and you are extremely lucky that you have both your mom and me, and now we get to take care of you. Pero I said, when I was young, I didn't have a car like this car that we're driving on right now. Y and then the other thing is, like, I took them to Disneyland. I rented a 15 people van, and I took everyone in my family. I took all of them, right? And I paid for everybody's everything, for the food, for the ticket, for the hotel, for everything. And I explained to the family as we were having lunch. I said, for a couple of my family members, they have been in the US only for about 2-3 years. And I said, it took you 2-3 years to get here. It took me 16. I just hope you understand that there are lots of people who are innovators and trailblazers and pioneers who may be, because of the language, either barrier or advantage, but they are working tirelessly to open up new doors for you. And sometimes it's not a family member. Oftentimes is a teacher who's advocating for you. Oftentimes it's a counselor who's advocating for you. Oftentimes it's people like, you, Gisel, or you, Angelica, or you who work with Kevin, that you are putting together programs and strategies to support schools to do that. And so I then try to bring it home with that message to say to my kids, where there are a lot of people who are not as lucky as you are. And so the last thing I'll share here is, oftentimes when my daughter complains about something, I said, okay, that's interesting. You know what? So tomorrow, I promised you I was going to take you to eat pupusas. And she really loves pupusas, the Salvadorian food. And I said, we're not going tomorrow anymore. She said, well, how come? En español, ¿por qué no? Porque tienes que aprender a apreciar lo que tienes ahorita.
Yes.
You should begin to appreciate what you have now. So until you learn, I said, it's my responsibility to teach you the lesson so you are happy with the things you have, because otherwise you'll always be complaining about the things you don't have, the things you are missing. And so I said, imagínate que yo ahorita me pongo a llorar porque no tengo un avión, but look, I have a car.
Yeah.
Right? Entonces I said, aren't you happy that we have a car and we don't have to walk from school?
Right.
Yeah.
Or be on the bus. Like I'm first generation. My parents, my dad's from Jalisco, my mom from Nayarit. They came to Tijuana to work, right? So they leave their little pueblitos and they come to Tijuana. And so we grew up very poor as well. And then so my kids don't really appreciate. I say they appreciate, but they don't know how. They don't know
the struggles.
Yeah, right, the struggles, like you say. My dad was an absent. I mean, he was around, but he worked nights, so he didn't take us to school. A school bus took us to school. And so my kids grew up with, you get to walk to school. You have a nice neighborhood school right down the street.
So you can,
And I had to, it was called VEEP, where, they took all the Latinos over all the way to the white side so they could get the Title I money. So
wow.
that's that I didn't find out until I was older. So I get how our kids sometimes don't see, like, oh, Disneyland every year, or Disneyland, or they take they don't know the struggles. And sometimes as parents, don't you think that we want to overdo,
Yeah,
because
overcompensate.
yeah,
Yeah.
overcompensate for sure, because of what we didn't have, right, as growing up. And so yes,
Yes.
we can totally relate. I'm sure our other listeners can probably relate as well, of their first generation here, after our parents came, or
Yeah.
in your case, your mother, right?
Yeah. We were talking today about the Kumeyaay people and how they're still here. But at the beginning of the time, it's like that they used the resources that they had. They didn't go to those stores to go buy their food. It's like they had to collect, and they had to struggle to eat. It wasn't that fast. Everything that today is like, we're so used to everything being instant. And our students now, it's everything has to be right there, right now, right? And it's like how and that leads into our second question about how with the dual language program do we help the students get connected to the culture, like slow pace, while also helping them grow. So it ties into the third pillar, and how to connect of where their families come from, and to continue that tradition, that culture, and not lose it, and not just like you said, everything's like, I need it, I need it, I need it, but it's like, let's go back. It's like to the basics, right? So how does the dual language program help students be connected?
Yes, well, in my opinion, I just volunteered today at his classroom, so I see in full effect the dual immersion aspect of it. Because even when I see a little girl who could not speak Spanish, and so I'm trying then to speak in English to communicate with her, and even the teacher says, "No, please don't talk to her in English. Talk to her in Spanish, because this is what we want." And so then that's going to create everyone's little environment to through truly think in this new language. For example, you may heard that there is no translation for the word in Spanish, estrenar, right? The estrenar is like when you buy something new that you being eagerly looking forward to buying, but there's no literal translation for it in English. And it's because of cultural relevance, ¿verdad? And so now you have a blend from all these kids that I see in the classroom, that they all, many of them look very different than most others. And yet the thinking patterns, they can begin to understand just by this one common thread, which is the language itself, build better community. So I see that as an advantage. And if I can share something with the listeners here now, is a tool that I have been leveraging, and I always hated novelas. I did. It's just too dramatic for me. Now, however,
What?
now
Sorry.
I know. No.
we just lost him. However, now I use as a tool this specific novela is about kids in Mexico. And my kids are half Mexican, half Guatemalan. But this specific novela, which is in Espanol, it's called Vivan los Niños, like long live the kids, something like that, right? And I love the whole scenery of the novela, because in every episode, the kids are always at school. Like 80% of the time, they're always at school, and then 20% of the time off of school doing whatever in their home. But then the dynamic of that is that it's in Spanish. And anybody can watch it on an app called VIX, VIX, and you watch it for free with ads. Watch it paid and no ads. But the point is, in the bilingualism, now you are being rooted also into the culture, especially if you're Latino. Latino culture can all blend lots with Mexican culture. Mexican culture goes into many areas. Like I listen to Vicente Fernandez, right? If Vicente Fernandez is not Guatemalan, and I'm Guatemalan, but we will listen to Tigres del Norte.
Yeah.
They are not Guatemalan. But these kids, what I love about this novela is that there's the poor kid who lives like literally in el basurero, Like with the area where they throw the garbage, that's where he lives. He's the poor kid. And then you have the chubby kid. Now, he's chubby in his physical aspect, and they make fun of him sometimes for being chubby. However, he is the most honest kid. He has integrity. He showcases values. He shows respect. He shows responsibility, many values, that one kid. And then you have the kid that is rich. He's rich, but he's not too nice. And he's got many aspects that are not too great of a person. And then you have the rich girl who has lots of values, but she does not want to connect with this other little kid who looks different than her. And then you have this one kid who is the silly kid in the classroom. He's always making fun, making jokes. He's very witty with stuff like that. I love that novela because it has the personalities. It shows the socioeconomical levels of the people. And it's just a fantastic immersion of culture. And at the same time, is everything fully in Spanish. And it's an old novela, like 1980s. So it doesn't have new ideas that are coming out into the world that truly kids have no business learning about. It's just rooted into what they should learn, the good moral values. And so that's the one. That's the one novela.
I know novelas are it for me.
Yes. No, I had to jump in the wagon. I had to jump in the wagon. Okay.
I remember watching that novela when I was a kid. So I'm like, when you said Vivan los Niños, I'm like, oh, I watched that novela.
I know. We grew up with novelas. That's a cultural thing, right? And so, and that's, goes with our next question is a lot of parents in our not in dual immersion programs want to kind of assimilate, right? And they don't want one of the answers we always get when we ask parents, oh, ¿qué tal? ¿Quiere que su hijo esté en el doble inmersión? And they're like, oh, no, queremos que aprenda inglés, right? They just want, that's the thing. Like, well, how do we convince those parents that the dual immersion program is about valuing your culture, your L1, which is your, what you grew up with? It's just so hard for our schools to get our, English learners to be in this program, to preserve the language, right? And just an example, at our school, we have a lot of the grandparents dropping off, their grandkids. Their grandparents speak Spanish, their kids don't. And now they want their grandkids to speak Spanish because they can't communicate either with their own child, right? So how do we make sure that our community values these programs and make sure that that it's available and it's a good thing, it's an additive thing, right? It's not taking away or it's not learning English fast enough. They didn't exist when I was growing up. So that, I was placed in an all English classroom, but I felt I was missing something.
Yes.
So what made you decide to put your kids in a program?
Well, I think there are a couple of ways in which we can persuade, influence, and inspire families to value this opportunity of dual immersion as much as I see the opportunity in it. And one of the ways is I remember interviewing a younger guy who graduated from both Harvard and Stanford, and he was an undocumented Latino living in LA growing up, very limited income. And I said, how do you persuade your family to allow you to go to Harvard? Because lots of families don't want you to move away from the family. And he says, well, I just told them that the kids of the Mexican presidents go to Harvard. And that's how I persuaded them. So, for the language itself, I always ask the families, have you ever had a situation or a day, or have you ever seen somebody looked for a professional, whether it's a real estate agent, a lawyer, whether it's an engineer, whether it's a doctor, whether it's whatever profession, and they couldn't find someone that spoke Spanish here in the United States? They're like, yeah, we all know somebody who couldn't find that professional that spoke Spanish. I said, that allows you to know that that is the opportunity for your kid when your kid becomes that professional, because lots of people will be looking for him and he will be able to, or she will be able to make herself known for the professional that speaks this language of yours, which you should value. And then, of course, there are lots of examples in which you can help families understand. So for them, it's like, why Spanish? We already speak Spanish. I've always spoken, so they don't value it as much because it's already part of them. So for me, it's like I showed a bottle of water. And I said, Senora, have you ever purchased this bottle of water at the park? Like, no, I don't really buy water at the park. Yeah, because you can find a fountain and it's free, right? So why would you pay for it? You don't really value it. Well, how much do you think this is at the airport? Bottle of water is like $5 at the airport. Well, how much is this at the movie theater? It's like $5. Would you pay $5 for this? No, I'll just go to the store and buy 24 pack and buy it for $5 24 pack. Would you agree that depending on where this is, it will be valued different? So even though you may not see the value, your kid is not going to live in your house working all the time as a professional. When they grow older, they will be in spaces where they will value speaking Spanish, writing Spanish, reading in Spanish. And so aside from the fact that they will be able to communicate clearly with the past generations, with our ancestors, right? Like the familia, los bisabuelos y abuelos. So don't you think it would be sad that your grandkids won't be able to speak Spanish just like you? Sometimes if you don't make it about their kid, but you make it about their grandkids or their great grandkids, they're like, no, yo sí quiero que mi nieto hable, right? Like I really want my grandkids to speak it. Entonces, you try different ways to make them persuade them. Y el otro ejemplo is you can say, look, did you know that the 30%, whatever the percentage is, of Anglo people who mainly speak English and not Spanish, they put their kid in this program? Well, why do you think that is, señora? Porque vale el lenguaje que usted, que es parte de usted, vale más de lo que usted quiere. Pero you have to put in examples like that so that they can break beliefs that are not serving them well anymore. So
what we've seen too is they want to put their program they want to put their kids in the program when they're 4th and 5th graders, when they've already lost most of the language in Spanish, and the social language is English, and so the kids only want to speak English and they don't have that that Spanish, right, during school time. They're there 6.5 hours, and for the most part, they're just speaking in English. And so we always get parents in when their kids are in 4th, 5th grade. They're like, oh, we want them in the program. They lost their Spanish. And in a way, we kind of say it's kind of late because they're speaking and writing, reading at a 4th, 5th grade level, which, when they want to go in 4th and 5th, they can't even pronounce anything in Spanish.
Es más difícil.
Ajá, es súper difícil. Y no se dan cuenta hasta mucho más después. When you tell them in kinder and 1st grade, they're like, no, just English. And so we want our community to really appreciate that these programs are really made for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's like tell your comadre, compadre. It's like the benefits of the programs is like put the word out there so everybody knows about them. And you are not, like you said, the programs are for the community. So take advantage of them. They're free. Están ahí.
Sí. Es como el agua, like I said, right? Because it's there, you wouldn't pay for it. And if you were in a situation where you're like, oh, we really need that, entonces or you could say, señora, do you ever plan to send your kid on a vacation to Mexico or to whatever country they're from, right? Like, wouldn't you think that would benefit them because they have to speak the local language? And sometimes it makes, you gotta try every idea possibly. And one of them is going to make them click and say, no, pues I see it. I have my kids to speak Spanish. I only speak to my kids in Spanish. I know in school they'll pick up the English.
Yeah,
definitely. Right? And then we're all talking about like our roots and how we were brought up. How do you incorporate that like in your daily life? Like, do you teach your kids like slang from Guatemala, music? How do you honor your roots and then continue passing them to your children? Do you have any examples of how you do that?
Yes, without a doubt. I spoke about this at La Cosecha, which is another conference like yours, ATDLE, dual bilingual language. Also, this one is in Mexico, which I was recommended by Kevin Chavez, your executive director, of course. So food for me, it's a big deal. I'm always searching for where is the Guatemalan food. And for me, for my kids, I do the same thing. So we have this food that looks similar to Mexican tamales, but we call them chuchitos. They have a lot more red sauce to it and probably a little bit more meat to it also. And in my opinion, they're more delicious. Okay.
We have to try them.
Here I am teaching my kids, these are chuchitos. We call them chuchitos. And it would just translate to small dogs, like little dogs. That's the translation to the name chuchitos. And so their mom looked at me like I was an alien, like, what are you saying? And why are you teaching it to my kids? Mom is Mexican, right? And so I said, well, this is my culture, and therefore I'm going to teach them exactly how. And so we have also these little tiny things that look like what in Mexican culture they call them sopes, but we do it a little bit different, and the seasoning is different, and we call them garnachas. So the name is quite different, and they're deep fried also también. Yes, I know sopes aren't always deep fried. They sometimes nomás lo ponen en el comal, but I do that. And then for example, my kids are half Mexican, so Mexican independence, I believe, is September 16. So for me, it's September 15. So I drive from where I live 3 hours to a city where they do a bigger celebration about independence. Yes, and I teach them about los colores de Guatemala, like azul y things like that. Fun fact that I've always done with my little babies since growing up, and I would be giving them a shower. As I'm giving them a shower, I would play them an Himno Nacional de Guatemala, right? And
I love it.
They think it's a song. They think it's a song that is just a nice song to listen to. And so, and I tell them, este es el Himno Nacional de Guatemala. And as I'm dropping off my kids to their dual immersion school, one day I took them late, 8:30, something like that. And I hear the principal giving the announcement in Spanish. Great principal, by the way. And then she said, well, we're gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance, right? And so I hear just over the intercom, I play allegiance to the flag of the United States. And so then I said, you know what? I never thought I was teaching that to my kids. So then the next day I said, I'm gonna teach you the Pledge of Allegiance to the Guatemalan flag. Bandera nuestra, a ti juramos devoción perdurable, lealtad perenne. And so I've done those things because otherwise it's gonna die with me, and I don't want it to. I don't want that to happen.
Yes, that's so important. My husband's Peruvian, so I get it. And yo soy mexicana, my husband's Peruvian. And so when it comes to them, and I don't know if your kids feel, it's like, which way do I go? Which way do I go?
Yo también, the one difference between their mom and me is that their mom doesn't mind if my kids talk to her in Spanish y le dice, oh, ¿y tú qué quieres hacer esto? ¿Y tú qué quieres hacer el otro? Y mamá, ¿y tú? And they cannot call me tú. They cannot tutearme. I say, no, I am usted. Right? Oh, y usted quiere esto, y usted quiere aquello. So that's a little bit of a difference. I cannot take the two from my kids. I cannot. And because I've been teaching them since they were born, so it has never become an issue, so to say. So because it's my responsibility to if my kids don't do something that I want them to do, it's my fault. So I just teach them to do it, and I knock on wood, they are wonderful. I have never had any one of them, and I have 3. Never had them throw a tantrum on me. Never. I am the most blessed person I know because of this.
Yeah. No, my kids, it's funny because we did our whole DNA thing, the ancestry.com, and they're more Peruvian than I. And I'm like, hey, you know what?
You're like, and I made them in my stomach.
Exactly. So no, they're more Peruvian, and it's funny because that's what they prefer more. So
it's in their blood.
Yeah, it's in the blood, the Incas. in them. So no, and you know what you're gonna see too, and hopefully you're already seeing is that what you teach them at home about your culture or their mother's culture, that's gonna go ahead and just transpire at school when they have to do their presentations. They feel so how do I want to say it? They feel se sienten orgullosos. They feel proud of where they're from. Like my kids, they were like, "Oh, I'm supposed to do a country report," and they're like, Mexico, Peru, Mexico, Peru. And I said, you know what? Why don't you do Peru? I gave in. And I said, go ahead and do a Peruvian one. Bring that Inca Cola over there. But the reason why is because there was a lot of Mexicanos. So I wanted them to really learn a different culture. And they were so happy, like, to just share where they're from and where their father is from. And of course, el papa bien orgulloso. Hazle lomo saltado. And I'm like, no, it's a school. I'm not making food for them. They can have Inca Cola. But you'll see that with your kids. You'll see that they're very proud of where they're from because that comes from you. That comes from you teaching them that they should be proud and they'll voice it, right, with everyone else.
Sí, claro. I must comment briefly here. As we were watching the novela from the little kids, Vivan los Niños, in one of the episodes, they were celebrating something y estaban echándole porras, right? Like they were, I don't know how to say echándole porras in English. How do you say that? How do you say echándole
porras? Cheering?
Yeah, they were cheering somebody. Y entonces, the kids in the novela scene, they were cheering, chiquita, póngale mi mamá, chiquita, póngale mi mamá. Entonces mi niña me dice, ellos son bien mexicanos, ¿verdad? And so I explained to her, well, these are actors in Mexico and they are recording this in Mexico. So yeah, they truly are Mexicans.
Yeah.
Pero observó, right? Just with the cheering, it came out of nowhere. She was like, they are really Mexican, huh?
I know, that is so funny. Oh my gosh. Was there I think we answered some of the questions. Is there a book that you want to share with us and our listeners on something that does it have to relate to this topic or whatever, just a book that you want to recommend to our listeners?
Well, truly, I'll tell you, there are lots of books that have helped me become a successful professional up to this point. But I'm going to say that no amount of success means anything if our family isn't taken care of. And it really begins with the level of love and intention in which we raise our kiddos. And I've never had a father. So the three books that I would recommend to anyone, and I started my career as a speaker with these three books, doing a workshop. The workshop was Raising Positive Kids in a Negative World. That is, in fact, not my own title. I borrow it from the program itself by a gentleman named Zig Ziglar. He has Raising Positive Kids in a Negative World. That was his program. But the second program I would love to mention to anyone raising kids is Raising Super Kids by Brian Tracy, which is a legend in the personal development industry. And the third program that truly made a big difference for me, and I immersed myself into these three books even before I had my kids, because I was teaching the subject of parenting to parents, is Chicken Soup for the Parent Soul by Jack Canfield. And so very nice, easy reads. And if you say, Ovi, what books change your life? In the thing that matters most, which is my kids, those are the three books.
Yeah. Ooh. Did you get those, he said? Did you write them down for me? We could just play it back, right?
It's recorded.
Perfect. You know, Raising Positive Kids in a Negative World. Yes. Raising Super Kids, and Chicken Soup for the Parent Soul.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you so much. I'm such a book nerd. Every time we do this and somebody mentions a book, I'm all like, oh, I gotta get a book. I gotta get these books. Even though my kids are already grown up, I still feel they're at different stages, right? Every stage is different from
Yes.
so
Really.
And
yeah.
if I may mention two more for the parents, that may be more of a personal success rather
Mhm.
than family setting, is Think and Grow Rich, because it gets you in the mindset of what's possible. And then the second one, which I always, whenever I mention that I've always dreamt of becoming a millionaire, buying my own plane, people look at me like I'm crazy, like, are you interesado? Like, are you avaricioso and things like that. I just think like other people own planes. I don't see
Yes,
what's wrong with it.
there's
So the
nothing wrong
second,
with that.
nothing wrong with that. So the second book is The Millionaire Fast Lane, because I always think, people say think outside the box. Well,
Mhm,
I don't want to work until I'm 65.
mhm,
That is what I know. And so therefore I need to think, what is the faster lane to get to this point? So those would be the two books I highly recommend, because our kids oftentimes admire us also by what we do accomplish. I can't tell my kids like, oh, you have to continue to achieve new level of success, and they always see me stagnant.
yeah,
Entonces, I think that's not congruent, ¿verdad?
yeah.
So those are the two books I would share with anyone as a resource.
They totally get motivated. That's one thing I tell my kids, because they say, well, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up or this. And I'm like, well, what's your passion?
Mhm.
Find your passion, because then if you find your passion, it doesn't seem like work, right? It
Yes.
just seems like you're doing it. Like, I'm getting paid for this. I'm
Yeah. And I must mention to that comment, Angelica, about what's your passion. Most people don't believe in the passion thing, and I wholeheartedly do, because my profession is my passion, public speaking. So I must recommend two more books for any listeners who also give this advice of what's your passion, to make it very practical so that kids can make actual living on their passion. And the two books are by a professor from a university, I believe in Texas, and he hated salespeople. And until he gave in and he began studying, researching how to sell. So his two books are Influence, one of them, and the other one is Persuasion, like persuasion, but he calls it persuasion. Uh,
Mhm.
those two books will change anybody's life, in the fact of like, hey, chase your passion, go for your passion, but you gotta be able to sell this thing that is your passion. You gotta be able to make a business out of it. You gotta be able to
right.
do the exchange, right? So I love the advice of follow your passion,
Follow your
because
passion.
I'm living my passion. I love public
Yes.
speaking. I will die doing public speaking.
Well,
And
you definitely do it really
Yes.
well. Thank you so much, Ovi, for joining us today. I mean, just sharing your experience as a dual language parent and just life, right? And honoring what
Definitely.
you lived through, and sharing your life with us really means a lot. Just kind of makes us reflect, too, as how did we grow up, and what is the thing that we hold on to, and how do we go on with that. So thank you so much for coming on here with ATDLE, and hopefully we'll see you soon as well at our
yes,
next, well, we have our next conference here in San Diego. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to make it with us, but you are definitely invited.
I've got to go at least just for the dancing.
Yes,
Definitely.
right? Those are fun.
I had a wonderful
Um,
time.
So, Ovi, can you tell our audience where can they reach you if they want to learn more from you? Do you have a YouTube channel? You mentioned that you have a podcast as well. Where can people look for this information so they can learn more from you?
Yes, thank you for the question, Gisel. I appreciate it. Well, I am easily findable online. If anybody Googles me as Ovi Vásquez, Ovivasquez, or as I like to say, Ovi, like Obi-Wan Kenobi. And my at name everywhere is OV Inspire. So the letter O for Oscar, the V for Victor, the word inspires, and then everything else is there. I try to make lots of videos on inspiring students. I try to make lots of videos on motivating people, and I definitely make lots of videos on developing more leaders, which is what my podcast is on. And we have had people from Harvard, from Stanford, from Apple, from Google, from leading institutions, as we truly working on develop what is our mission, which is helping you develop the next generation of values-driven leaders, because a lot of people lack leadership, and we hope to bring an antidote to that problem.
Yay, thank you
Thank you
so
so much.
much for that. And a huge thank you to our listeners and to everyone working to straighten dual language education. Don't forget, and like we already mentioned, our ATDLE summer conference will be held here in sunny San Diego. Well, let's see if it's sunny. Usually during June, it's June gloom. And so
Don't say that, Angelica.
no, I won't put it out in the world. So it's going to be here in June 17th through the 19th. And I say here because we live here in San Diego. That's why I hope
Nice.
to see everyone there. And don't forget, in the month of February, we have our ATDLE Learner Series on Saturdays starting February 7th. We have lots of workshops going on if you're interested in signing up. And we also have some on March 7th. So,
Yes, and everyone remember, si eres bilingüe, vales por dos.
yes.
Yes, muchísimas gracias a todos. Y we'll see you soon. Thank you so much, Ovi. And don't forget to follow us, both Ovi Inspires and ATDLE, in your social media platforms. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Gracias, Angelica y Ovi, por este viernes. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, we appreciate your time and attention. Let us continue leading with language and advancing our learning. We hope you will join us for our next episode. Take care, everyone.
Goodbye.
Adios.
Be sure to follow us and connect using our newsletter and social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And shout out to our partners: Shunya Kids, Be Readers, Avant, CALSA, California Association of Latino Superintendents and Administrators, SDCOE, San Diego County of Education, Dual Language Education of New Mexico, and Meta Multilingual Educators Transforming Achievement.